There is something about this moment that is not accidental. There is something about this moment that is not accidental. You did not find this video. Not really. You were drawn here. Something quiet inside you, not loud, not dramatic, just a steady, patient pull, brought you to this exact place at this exact time. And if you have learned anything from the life you have lived so far, it is that those quiet pulls deserve your attention. So before anything else, I want you to take a breath. Not a deep, forced breath. Just the kind that comes when you finally sit down after carrying something heavy for too long. 'Cause that is what this is. A moment to sit down. You have been carrying things. I do not need to know the details to know that much. The details are yours. But the weight, the particular way it settles into your chest late at night, the way it is there even when you smile, even when the day goes fine, that I recognize. That I understand. And something told me today that you needed to hear this. You were not forgotten. Not by life. Not by God. Not by the quiet forces that move behind the surface of everything you can see. You were found today. Deliberately. Tenderly. Because what is coming next in your life required that someone find you first. And speak to you plainly, honestly, without pretense. Stay with me. What comes next is meant for you. 151 Claude responded. There are seasons in a person's life that do not have a name. There are seasons in a person's life that do not have a name. Not grief exactly. Not depression exactly. Not confusion exactly. But something that holds all three of those things inside it, quietly, like a room that has been closed for a long time. You walk past it every day. You do not open the door. But you know it is there. You have always known it is there. That is the season many people carry right now. And what makes it so difficult, what makes it so isolating, is that it does not look like anything from the outside. You get up. You do what needs to be done. You answer when someone speaks to you. You even laugh sometimes, and the laugh is real because you are not performing. You are simply someone who has learned to hold two things at once. The living of your life, and the quiet ache underneath it. Most people will never ask you about the ache. Not because they do not care, but because they cannot see it. And part of you has become so skilled at carrying it invisibly that you have almost forgotten what it felt like to set it down. To be seen carrying it. To have someone simply sit beside you and say, I know. See it. You do not have to pretend right now. That is what this moment is. Not a solution. Not a formula. Not a list of steps that will reorganize your inner world by morning. Just a voice. Just a presence. Just the particular kind of honesty that only comes from someone who has been in a closed room herself and knows what it costs to finally open the door. I want to talk to you today about what God does when He is about to move in a life. Not the dramatic version. Not the parting of seas or the voice from the sky. I mean the version that most people miss entirely because it does not look like what they were expecting. The version that looks like a pause. A redirection. A door that closes so quietly you almost wonder if it was ever open. A season of stillness so long and so heavy that you begin to wonder if you misunderstood everything. Your purpose, your prayers, your sense of direction. That version. The one that feels less like a miracle and more like waiting in the dark. Because here is what I have come to understand, after years of watching, listening, living, and rebuilding. God does some of His most precise and deliberate work in exactly those seasons. The ones that feel like nothing is happening. The ones where your prayers seem to stop at the ceiling. The ones where you look at your life and think, this cannot be where I am supposed to be. This cannot be the answer to everything I asked for. And yet there is something underneath the stillness. Something being arranged that your eyes cannot see yet. Something being made right that your hands could not have fixed. Something being protected, something being prepared, something being quietly, carefully, lovingly constructed in the invisible space between where you are and where you are going. God does not waste seasons. Not a single one. Not the ones that broke you. Not the ones that confused you. Not the ones where you sat in your car and cried before walking into a place where no one knew you were hurting. Not the ones where you prayed and heard nothing back. Not even the ones where you stopped praying for a while because the silence had become too heavy to keep speaking into. None of it was wasted. All of it was witnessed. Every quiet morning where you chose to keep going. Anyway, every night where you lay still and thought, tomorrow I will try again. Every small act of faith that no one saw, no one applauded, no one even knew about. Every time you chose gentleness when bitterness would have been easier. Every time you forgave someone who never asked for it, not because it was deserved, but because you understood somewhere deep inside that carrying unforgiveness was heavier than you could afford. Those moments were seen. And they matter more than you know. Because when God looks at a life, not the surface, not the accomplishments, not the visible things, when He looks at the interior of a person, at the texture of who someone is when no one is watching, He sees something that cannot be faked. He sees the quiet faithfulness, the stubborn hope, the dignity of someone who chose not to collapse even when collapsing would have been completely understandable. He sees you. Not the version of you that you present to the world. Not the version that holds it together, that has the right answer, that seems fine. The real version. The one underneath all of that. The one that is tired in ways that sleep does not fix. The one that has hoped and been disappointed and hoped again because something inside you refuses, absolutely refuses, to stop believing that your life has meaning. That your pain has a purpose. That the story is not over. That version of you. That is who this message is for. And that is who God told me to find today. There is a particular kind of loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from being surrounded by people who do not quite reach you. You know the kind. You are at the table. You are in the conversation. You are present in every way that can be measured from the outside. And yet there is a part of you that sits slightly behind all of it, watching, feeling the distance between what is being said and what you actually carry inside. Smiling at the right moments. Responding when spoken to. And wondering, in the quietest corner of yourself, if anyone in the room would recognize you if they could see all the way in. That is not a flaw in you. That is not a sign that something is wrong with how you love or how you connect. That is simply what happens when a person has lived deeply. When you have felt things at a level that does not translate easily into casual conversation. When your inner life is rich and complicated and layered in ways that cannot be summarized over dinner or explained in a moment of small talk. Some people are built for the surface. They are not wrong for that. But you were not built for the surface. You were built for depth. And depth, as beautiful as it is, can be its own kind of solitude. I want you to hear something about that solitude. It was not given to you as punishment. It was not a sign of rejection. It was not the universe telling you that you are too much or not enough or somehow mismatched with the world around you. That solitude, that particular interior silence that you have carried for longer than you can remember, was given to you because you were being prepared for something that requires it. There are certain kinds of wisdom that can only grow in quiet. There are certain kinds of strength that cannot be forged in the presence of constant noise and company and distraction. They require the particular pressure of being with yourself. Of sitting in the stillness long enough that you stop running from it and start listening to it. Of learning the difference between loneliness as suffering and solitude as formation. Because that is what has been happening to you. Even when it did not feel like it. Even when it felt like nothing more than pain, like absence, like being left out of something everyone else seemed to have access to. Underneath all of that, something was being formed in you. A particular quality of understanding. A particular depth of compassion. A particular ability to sit with another person in their darkest place without flinching, without offering hollow comfort, without rushing them toward a resolution they are not ready for. You were being made into someone who knows how to stay. And that is rarer than you think. Most people, when they encounter another person's pain, feel the urge to fix it, to redirect it, to offer the right words quickly so that the discomfort passes and everyone can return to safer ground. There is nothing cruel in that. Comes from a genuine desire to help. But it is not the same as staying. It is not the same as sitting in the difficulty beside someone and simply being willing to let it be difficult, without rushing, without performing, without needing the moment to resolve itself for your own comfort. You know how to do that. You have always known how to do that. And you know it because you have been that person, the one in the difficult place, the one who needed someone to stay, the one who sometimes found that staying and sometimes found only people who needed the discomfort to end. That experience did not harden you. Could have. It does that to some people. Disappointment, repeated often enough, teaches certain people to close, to protect, To stop expecting presence from others because expecting it only leads to the particular pain of its absence. But that is not what happened to you. You stayed open. Not blindly. Not without learning discernment. Without developing wisdom about who deserves your depth and who does not. But underneath the discernment, underneath the careful boundaries you have built over time, the openness is still there. The willingness to feel. The willingness to believe that connection is possible. The willingness to love even knowing that love carries risk. That is not naivety. That is courage of a very specific and very undervalued kind. And God sees it. I want to stay with that for a moment because I think it is something you need to hear without it being rushed past. God sees the courage it takes to remain soft in a world that rewards hardness. He sees the dignity in your continued willingness to hope when hope has cost you something real. He sees what it has taken, what it still takes, to wake up and choose gentleness again, to choose faith again, to choose openness again, after everything that has argued against all three. He sees that you have not become what your pain could have made you. That matters. It matters in ways that have consequences. Real, tangible, coming toward you consequences, that you cannot yet see from where you are standing. But they are coming. And they are shaped in part by exactly this. By who you chose to remain in the seasons when remaining yourself was the hardest thing you did. There is a verse that most people read quickly. It sits quietly in the middle of stories that get more attention, so it tends to be passed over. But it stops me every time. It says that God is close to the broken-hearted. Not that He notices them from a distance. Not that He feels sympathy for them from afar. Close, present, near in a way that implies proximity, the kind of closeness that means He is right there, in the very center of the ache, not outside it looking in. If you have been broken-hearted, if you are still in some quiet way that you carry carefully, then hear what that means for you specifically. He is not far from you. He is not waiting for you to get yourself together before He draws near. He is not on the other side of your healing, waiting to meet you once you have processed everything correctly and arrived at the right conclusions. He is present in the unfinished place. In the still hurting place. In the not yet resolved, not yet understood, not yet healed place. Right there. With you. And the fact that you are here, listening to this on this particular day, is not coincidence. It is proximity. It is the shape that His nearness took today. A voice, a message, a moment of feeling found in the middle of an ordinary afternoon or a quiet evening or a restless night when sleep would not come and something pulled you here instead. He found you. Not to overwhelm you. Not to demand anything from you. Just to remind you, through whatever channel was available, that you are known. You are near. You are not as alone in this as the silence has sometimes suggested. And what comes after being found, after this moment, after this recognition, is something worth staying for. There is a moment that happens in a person's life that is almost impossible to describe to someone who has not lived it. It is not a dramatic moment. It does not arrive with clarity or with the particular relief of finally understanding something that confused you for a long time. It is quieter than that. More subtle. Almost easy to miss entirely if you are moving too fast or if the noise around you is too loud or if you have trained yourself, as many people have, to distrust the quiet signals because the loud ones have disappointed you so many times before. It is the moment when something inside you shifts. Not breaks. Not collapses. Not transforms in some sudden, visible before and after way. A shift. Like the almost imperceptible change in light that happens in the very early morning, before anyone would call it dawn, when the darkness is still present but something in the quality of it has changed. Something has moved. Something is different. And you cannot quite explain it, but you feel it, and some part of you, some deep, patient, faithful part of you, recognizes it. That is what I want to talk to you about today. 'Cause I believe that shift is happening for you. Right now. In this season. Underneath the weight of everything you are still carrying, underneath the questions that have not yet found their answers, underneath the tiredness that sleep does not fully reach, something is moving. Something is changing. And the reason it has been so difficult to feel it clearly is not because it is not real. It is because the most significant movements in a life are almost always invisible before they are undeniable. Think about how things grow. Not the sudden eruption of something, not the moment the flower opens or the moment the fruit becomes visible on the branch. Think about what happens before that. The long, invisible process underneath the surface. The roots pushing through soil that resists them. The slow accumulation of everything the plant needs: water, minerals, the particular chemistry of the earth around it, gathering quietly, building quietly, preparing quietly for the moment when what was invisible becomes visible. You cannot rush that process. You cannot open the ground and demand that the roots move faster. You cannot will the fruit into existence before the tree is ready. The timing is not arbitrary, and it is not cruel, and it is not indifferent to how long you have been waiting. It is simply the time that the thing requires to become what it is meant to be. And you are in that process right now. The roots of something significant are moving in your life. Something is gathering. Something is being built in the invisible space between where you stand today and where you are going. And the fact that you cannot see it yet, the fact that the surface of your life may still look unchanged, may still carry the same questions and the same unresolved places and the same waiting, does not mean it is not happening. It means you are in the most important part of the process. The part that requires trust. And I want to be honest with you about trust because I think it deserves honesty. Trust is not easy. It is not the simple, uncomplicated thing that people sometimes describe it as. Just believe, just let go, just surrender. Those words are true, but they leave out the texture of what trust actually feels like when you are living it from the inside. From the inside, trust feels like standing at the edge of something you cannot see the bottom of and choosing to lean forward anyway. Not because you are fearless. Not because the doubt is gone. Not because every question has been answered and every uncertainty resolved. But because something in you, something quiet and stubborn and deeply rooted, knows that leaning forward is right, even when it is frightening, even when it makes no logical sense, even when every reasonable part of you would prefer to step back to safer ground. That is not a small thing. That is one of the most significant acts a human being can perform. And if that is where you are right now, if you are standing at that edge, feeling the difficulty of trust, feeling the pull between faith and fear, between leaning forward and stepping back, I want you to know that God is not watching that struggle with impatience. He is not looking at your doubt as a failure or your fear as a lack of faith. He is watching someone who is choosing, in the middle of genuine difficulty, to lean forward anyway. And that choosing matters. It matters not because it earns you something, not because trust is a transaction, not because faith is a formula where the right inputs guarantee the desired output. It matters because of what it does to you, because of who it makes you, because of the particular quality of character that is forged only in the space between uncertainty and forward movement, only in the place where you did not know how it would turn out but you moved anyway. There are things God places in a life that can only arrive after this. Not as a reward but as a consequence. A natural consequence, the way that the fruit is a consequence of the roots having done their work. There are relationships that can only find you after you have become someone shaped by this kind of trust. There are doors that can only open to someone who has developed the interior steadiness that only comes from having waited faithfully in the dark. You are being shaped for something specific, not something generic, not something that could belong to anyone, something that fits the particular contours of who you are, your history, your wounds, your longings, your particular way of loving and seeing and understanding the world. God does not do generic work. He does not mass-produce destinies. Every life he touches with specificity, with attention, with a knowledge of that particular person that goes deeper than anything that person even knows about themselves. He knows what you were made for before you do. And he is working toward it. Quietly, patiently, without fanfare, without announcing himself in the ways you might expect, because the work that is being done is the kind that requires gentleness. It is interior work. It is the work of healing something in you that was broken before you even understood it was broken. It is the work of restoring something that was taken from you in seasons you may not have fully grieved yet. It is the work of preparing a space inside you, clearing it, settling it, making it ready for something that is coming that requires room to land. You may have prayed for things that have not arrived yet. I want to speak to that carefully because it is a tender place for many people. The prayer that you have repeated so many times that you have almost stopped saying it aloud, but you still feel it, still carry it, still bring it to God in the quiet of an unguarded moment. The prayer that has not been answered in the way you hoped. The prayer that has made you wonder, in your most honest moments, whether you are praying correctly, believing correctly, whether something about you is preventing the answer from reaching you. I want to release you from that wondering. Not every unanswered prayer is a sign that something is wrong with you or with your faith. Some unanswered prayers are a sign that God is working on the answer at a level you cannot access yet. Some unanswered prayers are not being ignored. They are being handled with a care and a complexity that exceeds what an immediate answer could contain. Some unanswered prayers are the most precisely attended to prayers in the room, being worked on in the invisible, being prepared with a thoroughness that an easy, quick answer could never have provided. Your prayers have been heard. Every single one of them. Not filed away. Not deferred indefinitely. Heard, held, and being worked on in a way that your eyes will eventually see. In a way that, when it arrives, will make the waiting make sense. Not make it painless in retrospect. Not erase the cost of it. But make it make sense. Give it a meaning that the waiting itself could not contain. That day is closer than you think. 154 Claude responded. There is something that happens to a person after they have waited long enough. There is something that happens to a person after they have waited long enough. Not the beautiful version of waiting that is described in poems and sermons. The patient, peaceful, trusting wait of someone whose faith never wavers. I mean the real version. The version that has texture and difficulty and days inside it where you are not sure you believe anymore what you believed when the waiting began. The version where you have had to recommit quietly to hope. Not once but dozens of times, sometimes in the same week, sometimes in the same afternoon. That kind of waiting changes you. And I do not mean that in the way it is sometimes said. As a consolation, as a way of making the difficulty seem more palatable. I mean it as a statement of something true and specific. The waiting changes the interior landscape of a person in ways that nothing else can. Carves out space. Deepens capacity. It stretches something inside you that needed to be stretched. Not because the stretching was pleasant, but because what you are being prepared to carry requires a container larger than the one you had before the waiting began. You are larger now than you were. Not in a way that the world necessarily measures. Not in accomplishments or visibility or any of the external markers that culture uses to signal growth. But in the interior sense, in the depth of your understanding, in the breadth of your compassion, in the steadiness that has developed in you through the very process of continuing to stand when standing was the hardest available option. That largeness is not incidental. It is not a side effect. It is the point. Because what is coming toward you, what is being prepared for you in the invisible space between your present and your future, requires someone of exactly this size. Someone who has been hollowed out by difficulty and filled back up with something more substantial than what was there before. Someone who knows the weight of real things. Someone who cannot be easily moved by surface-level disturbances because they have survived disturbances that went all the way to the root. Someone like you. I want to talk about something that most people do not discuss in spiritual conversations, because it requires a particular kind of honesty that can feel uncomfortable. I want to talk about the moments when you felt abandoned. Not the small moments. Not the ordinary disappointments that come and go without leaving much behind. The deep ones. The moments when you prayed with everything you had and the answer did not come. The moments when you needed something specific, not something extravagant, not something beyond reason, just something particular and real and necessary, and it was not there. The moments when someone you trusted left, or betrayed you, or simply disappeared from your life in a way that left a gap you did not know how to fill. The moments when the silence of God felt indistinguishable from the silence of absence. I'm not going to tell you that those moments were not real. I'm not going to reframe them in a way that minimizes what they cost you. The feeling of abandonment is one of the most precise and most painful experiences a human being can have. And the fact that it occurred in a spiritual context, that it happened in the middle of your faith, in the middle of your seeking, in the middle of your most sincere reaching toward God, does not make it smaller. It makes it more complex, more disorienting, more difficult to know what to do with. Because when the abandonment feels like it is coming from the source of everything, where do you turn? I think you turned inward. I think you went quiet. I think you continued because that is what you do, you continue, but something in the continuing became more careful, more guarded, more aware of the possibility of silence as a response. Not cynical. You did not become cynical. But you became someone who carries the memory of that silence, and who prays now with the awareness that the answer may not come in the form or the timing you hope for. That awareness is not a wound. Not anymore. Has become something else. Something closer to wisdom. The particular wisdom of someone who has prayed in the dark and kept praying. Who has hoped without certainty and kept hoping. Who has loved without guarantee and kept loving. That is not ordinary. That is not something that can be manufactured or performed or arrived at by any shortcut. It is real. And it is yours. And I want to tell you something about those moments of felt abandonment. Something that I believe with everything in me. Not as a theological position but as a living truth that I have seen confirmed in life after life after life. God was present in every single one of them. Not distant. Not distracted. Not delayed by something more important. Present. In the center of the silence. In the middle of the ache. In the specific texture of your most difficult nights. Present with an attention and a tenderness that the darkness made invisible to you. But that was never absent. The silence was not emptiness. It was restraint. The particular restraint of someone who loves you enough to allow the process, the difficult, necessary, irreplaceable process, to do its full work in you, rather than interrupting it too soon with an answer that would have felt like relief but would have prevented something more important from forming. This is the hardest thing to hold. I know that. The idea that love sometimes looks like withholding. That presence sometimes looks like silence. That the most attentive care can wear the disguise of abandonment when you are living it from the inside without the perspective that only time eventually provides. But I have seen it confirmed too many times to doubt it. The people who have been most genuinely, most deeply transformed, not just improved on the surface, not just given better circumstances, but actually changed in their interior architecture, are almost always people who survived a season of silence. A season where the usual reassurances were not available. A season where faith had to operate without the comfort of feeling faith working. Where trust had to function without the warmth of feeling trusted. Where they had to continue simply because continuing was the only thing they knew how to be. You survived that. Or you are surviving it right now. And what I want you to understand, what I need you to carry forward from this moment, is that the survival itself is evidence. Not of your strength alone, though your strength is real. But of something working in you and through you and underneath you that is larger than your strength. Something that held you in the moments when you could not hold yourself. Something that kept the thread of you intact through the seasons that could have unraveled it. You did not make it through on your own. And you will not have to go forward on your own either. The same presence that was with you in the silence, that was working in the dark, that was holding the thread when you could not feel it, that presence has not left. It is here. It is active. It is moving in your life with an intention and a specificity that is about to become visible in ways it has not been before. The season of invisible work is not over. But the season of beginning to see it is beginning. And you are exactly where you need to be to receive what comes next. 155 Claude responded. There is a specific kind of mourning that people who have been through long seasons of difficulty will recognize. There is a specific kind of mourning that people who have been through long seasons of difficulty will recognize. It does not feel like a breakthrough mourning. It does not feel like the morning after the answer finally came, or the morning of the good news, or the morning where everything shifted in a visible and unmistakable way. Feels ordinary. The light comes in the same way it always does. The sounds outside are the same. Your body wakes up carrying the same familiar weight it has carried for longer than you can clearly remember. But something is different. Not on the surface. Not in anything you could point to or name or explain to someone else without sounding like you are reaching for something that isn't quite there. Just underneath. Just in the quietest register of your awareness. Something that feels, if you are very still and very honest, like the first breath after a very long time of breathing shallowly. Like something has loosened. Not resolved. Not finished. Not answered. Just loosened slightly, the way a knot loosens when the right amount of patient, careful pressure has finally been applied in exactly the right direction. I believe you have had mornings like that. Or you are about to. And I want to prepare you for something about those mornings, because they are easy to miss. They are easy to dismiss. The mind, trained by long seasons of difficulty to protect itself from disappointment, will sometimes look at that loosening and say, "Do not trust it. Do not let yourself feel it too fully. You have felt things shift before and then felt them tighten again, and the tightening after the hope is worse than the tightening that came before." I understand that impulse completely. It is not irrational. It is the reasonable response of someone who has learned, through experience, that hope can be expensive. But I want to offer you something different today. Not a guarantee. Not a promise dressed up in spiritual language that lets me say anything I want without accountability. Something more honest than that. I want to offer you permission. Permission to notice the loosening without immediately protecting yourself from it. Permission to feel the shift, however subtle, without rushing to either celebrate it or defend against it. Permission to simply be present to what is changing, without demanding that it prove itself before you allow yourself to feel it. That kind of presence, that open, undefended attention to what is actually happening in you, is itself a form of faith. It is the faith that says, "I am willing to notice. I am willing to pay attention. I am willing to be here for what is unfolding, even if I cannot yet see where it is going." And that willingness is not small. Because here is what I have come to understand about the way God moves in a human life. He moves toward openness. Not because he cannot work in a closed or defended heart. He can, and sometimes he does, and sometimes the very act of his working is what begins to open what was closed. But when a person creates even a small opening, even the slightest willingness to be present, to notice, to pay attention without immediately analyzing or protecting, that opening becomes the place where everything enters. The small crack in the wall is where the light comes through. And your willingness to be here today, to sit with this voice, to stay with this message, to allow these words into the quiet interior of your life, that is a crack in the wall. A real one. An intentional one. One that something is already moving through, even as you listen. I want to talk to you now about something that I think has been misunderstood in your life for a long time. Your sensitivity. The depth at which you feel things. The way the world reaches you more completely than it seems to reach other people. The way music can undo you. The way certain conversations stay with you for days. The way you can walk into a room and feel the emotional texture of it before a single word has been spoken. The way you grieve things that other people seem to move past without looking back. The way beauty affects you sometimes with an intensity that is almost painful, as if being moved by it costs you something, as if your capacity to feel it is inseparable from your capacity to feel everything else, including the things that hurt. That sensitivity has probably been named as a problem at some point in your life. Too emotional, too intense, too much, takes things too personally, needs to toughen up, needs to develop a thicker skin. Needs to learn not to let things affect her so deeply. I want to look at that carefully. Because I think those words, wherever they came from, however they arrived in your life, planted something in you that was not true. A quiet belief that the way you are built is a liability. That the depth at which you feel is a weakness that needs to be managed, rather than a gift that needs to be understood. It is not a liability. It is one of the most significant things about you. The capacity to feel deeply is not separate from the capacity to love deeply, to understand deeply, to perceive deeply, to create meaning in places where others see only surface. It is the same capacity, the same instrument. The depth that makes you vulnerable to pain is the exact same depth that makes you capable of the kind of connection, the kind of compassion, the kind of presence with another person that most people spend their whole lives longing for and rarely find. You cannot have one without the other. And God did not give you that depth by accident. He did not build you this way and then forget to account for what it would cost you. He built you this way because the work he has for you, the particular, specific, irreplaceable work that only you can do in the particular spaces where your life will take you, requires someone who can feel the room. Someone who can sit with another person's pain without flinching. Someone who can speak to a heart because she knows from the inside what hearts carry. Your sensitivity is your calling wearing ordinary clothes. It has probably never been framed to you that way. It has probably been framed as the opposite. As the thing that makes the calling harder, the thing you have to work around, the thing you manage and contain so that it does not interfere with functioning in the world. But I want to reframe it completely. Your depth of feeling is not what you overcome to do the work. It is the work. It is the instrument through which the work gets done. It is the reason that when you speak, really speak from the real place inside you, people feel it. Not just hear it, feel it. Because it carries something that cannot be faked, cannot be manufactured, cannot be produced by someone who has not lived at that depth themselves. You have lived at that depth. Every season of difficulty, every long night, every silent prayer, every moment of continuing when continuing was the hardest available option. Every choice to remain open when closing would have been easier and safer and more comfortable. All of it was deepening you. All of it was expanding the instrument. All of it was making you into someone capable of reaching people in places that polished, comfortable, untested voices cannot reach. And that reaching, that specific depth-to-depth reaching, is about to become more visible in your life. Not because you have finally finished the process. The process does not finish. Growth does not have a graduation ceremony. But because you have reached a place in the process where the interior work is ready to begin expressing itself outward. Where what has been forming in the hidden place is ready to step into the visible one. Where the roots have gone deep enough that the tree can now bear the weight of what it is about to produce. You are at that threshold. And the morning that feels ordinary, the one that carries the subtle loosening, the slight shift in the quality of something you cannot quite name, that morning may already be here. Pay attention to it. Do not rush past it. Do not explain it away. Do not wait for it to announce itself more dramatically before you allow yourself to feel it. It is already here. And so are you. 156 Claude responded. There is something I want to say to you before we go any further. There is something I want to say to you before we go any further. Not because the message is ending. It is not. There is still something important waiting at the end of this, something that I believe you came here specifically to hear, and I do not want you to miss it. But before we get there, I want to pause here in this moment and say something directly. If you are still here with me, if you have stayed through everything we have covered together, if these words have been landing somewhere real inside you, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and walk with us every day. Not because subscribing changes what God is doing in your life. Does not. Not because a YouTube channel is where your healing comes from. It is not. But because there is something about choosing, deliberately, to return to a place that speaks to the real part of you. Something about saying, I want more of this. I want to keep coming back to a space where I am allowed to be honest, where the conversation goes beneath the surface, where I am not required to perform or pretend or hold myself together in the way I hold myself together everywhere else. That choice matters. Community matters. Even quiet community. Even the kind that happens through a screen in the middle of an ordinary day, when you needed to hear something true and you found it here. If this has been that for you, if this voice has felt like company in a season that has been lonelier than you would like to admit, then stay. Subscribe. Come back tomorrow and the day after. Bring someone with you if you know someone who needs this too. We are building something here that is not about numbers. It is about reach. About finding the people who are in the closed rooms, in the waiting seasons, in the silent places where the usual noise does not reach them, and speaking directly to them. To you. One conversation at a time. And you are part of that now. So stay with me. Because what comes next is the part one most want you to hear. There is a moment in the story of Elijah that I return to often. Not the dramatic moments. Not the fire, not the confrontation, not the visible and unmistakable power. The moment I return to is quieter than all of those. It is the moment after. After the fire, after the running, after the exhaustion so complete that he lay down under a tree and asked to die. Not in a theatrical way. In the most human way. The way that comes when a person has given everything they have and still feels like it was not enough, still feels like they have failed, still feels like the best thing available is simply to stop. And what God did in that moment was not correct him, was not instruct him, was not remind him of his calling or his purpose or how far he still had to go. God fed him, quietly, with bread baked over coals and a jar of water. Simple things, physical things, the most basic acknowledgement that a body needs tending. That a person who has run as far as Elijah had run needs rest before they need revelation. Needs care before they need direction. Needs the most fundamental form of being seen. Someone noticing that you are tired, and responding to the tiredness before anything else. And then, only after the rest, only after the eating, only after the most basic human needs were attended to with gentleness, the still small voice. Not the wind, not the earthquake, not the fire, the still small voice. I think about that often in relation to the people who are drawn to this space. The people who find their way here are not, for the most part, people who need more noise. They are not people who need more dramatic promises or louder declarations or bigger spiritual spectacle. They are people who have been through enough of the wind and the earthquake and the fire. They are people who are tired, people who have run far, people who have given what they had and found themselves, at some point, lying under a tree and wondering if they can keep going. And what they need, what you may need right now in this season, is the still small voice. The one that does not shout. The one that does not demand. The one that comes after the rest, after the tending, after the most basic acknowledgement that you are human and you are tired and that is allowed. That voice is what this is. Not performance. Not production. Not spiritual entertainment dressed in sincere language. Just a voice. Sitting beside you. Saying the things that the still place inside you already knows but needed to hear from outside itself, to confirm, to solidify, to make real in a way that the interior knowing alone sometimes cannot quite manage. You needed to hear this today. And I needed to find you. Those two things are not unrelated. They are, in fact, the entire point. Because when God tells me to find someone, and I use that language carefully, not dramatically, not as a claim to some special spiritual authority, but as the most honest description of what this work feels like from the inside. When that impulse arrives, it is not general. It is not a broadcast sent in every direction hoping to land somewhere. It is specific. It is directional. It knows something about who needs to hear it, even when I do not know who that person is by name or by face or by the particular details of what they are carrying. Knows you. And it sent me to you today with something specific. Something that goes beyond comfort, beyond reassurance, beyond the particular relief of feeling seen and understood. Something that has to do with what comes next. With the threshold you are standing at. With the morning that is either already here or approaching faster than the current weight of things would suggest. What comes next is not more waiting. I want to say that carefully because I do not want to make a promise I cannot keep. The waiting is not necessarily finished in every dimension of your life. There may still be areas where the answer has not arrived, where the resolution has not come, where the thing you have hoped for is still forming in the invisible. I am not telling you that all of it resolves tomorrow morning. But something is shifting. Something specific. Something real. Something that has been in process longer than you know, being worked on at a level deeper than you can see, and is now, in this season, in these days, beginning to surface. Beginning to become visible. Beginning to cross the threshold from invisible to undeniable. And you need to be ready to receive it. Not ready in the sense of having everything figured out. Not ready in the sense of being fully healed, fully resolved, fully arrived at some perfected version of yourself. Ready in the simpler, more profound sense of being open, of being present, of having your hands open rather than clenched, of being willing to receive what comes in the form it actually arrives in, rather than only in the form you originally imagined. Because sometimes what God sends looks different from what we asked for. Not smaller, not lesser, not a consolation prize for the thing we really wanted, but different, shaped in ways we did not anticipate. Arriving through doors we were not watching, coming in forms that require us to be paying a different kind of attention than the kind we trained ourselves to pay while we were waiting for the original version of the answer. Stay open. Stay present. Stay here. 157 Claude responded. There is a last thing that needs to be said. There is a last thing that needs to be said. Not a summary. Not a list of everything we have covered together. Not a neat conclusion that ties the difficult things into something more comfortable than they actually are. Just the last true thing. The one that has been waiting underneath everything else, patient and quiet, for the right moment to surface. Here it is. You are not at the end of your story. I know that sounds simple. I know it may even sound like the kind of thing that gets said so often it has lost its edges, lost its ability to cut through to the place where it actually matters. But I want you to hear it today not as a phrase but as a fact. A specific, personal, about your life fact. The chapter you are in right now, the one that has felt, at times, like it might be the last one. The one that has carried more weight than you expected when it began. The one that has lasted longer than you planned, than you prayed for, than you thought you could sustain. That chapter is not the ending. It is not even close to the ending. It is, in fact, one of the most important chapters in the entire arc of what your life is becoming. Because the chapters that feel like endings are often the ones that contain the most significant turning points. Not the chapters that feel triumphant. Not the ones where everything is working and the answers are coming and the momentum is visible and unmistakable. Those chapters are beautiful. But they are rarely the ones that change the direction of everything. The chapters that change the direction of everything are almost always the ones that feel like too much. The ones that broke something open that needed to be broken open. The ones that stripped away something that had to be stripped away before the real thing could emerge. The ones that hurt in the specific way that only transformation hurts. Not like damage, not like destruction, but like the particular discomfort of becoming something larger than what you were. You have been in that chapter. And it is almost finished. Not in the sense that the difficulty disappears overnight. Not in the sense that you wake up tomorrow and everything is resolved and the weight is gone and the questions have all found their answers. But finished in the sense that the deepest work of it, the interior restructuring, the root-level transformation, the invisible process of becoming who you are being made into, that work is reaching its completion. The roots have gone as deep as they needed to go. The foundation has been laid with a thoroughness that required every day of the season you have been in. What gets built on that foundation is going to last. That is not a small thing. In a world where so much is surface, where so much is constructed quickly and collapses just as quickly, where so many things that look solid reveal themselves to be fragile when real pressure is applied, what is built on a deep foundation lasts. What is grown from deep roots can bear weight that would break something shallower. What is formed through the particular process you have been through has a quality of durability that ease could never have produced. You are going to be able to carry what comes next. Not because you are superhuman. Not because the difficulty has somehow made you immune to future pain. But because you have been prepared. Specifically, carefully, attentively prepared for the specific weight and the specific beauty and the specific demands of what is coming toward you. And it is coming toward you. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Not rush past it. Not immediately qualify it with all the reasons it might not be true or might not apply to you specifically or might be something that sounds good but does not translate into your actual life. Just sit with it. Let it be a possibility that you hold gently, without either gripping it too tightly or pushing it away. Something good is coming toward you. Something that has your name on it. Something that was designed with a particular shape of your life in mind. Your history, your wounds, your longings, your specific way of moving through the world. Something that is not a generic blessing distributed equally to everyone who says the right words or follows the right formula. Something particular. Something yours. And it is closer than the weight of this season has allowed you to feel. I want to tell you one more thing before we close. About the people in your life who have not understood your journey. The ones who could not see what you were going through because it did not look like anything recognizable from the outside. The ones who gave advice that missed the point. Entirely because they were looking at the surface of your situation without access to the interior of it. The ones who moved on from your pain faster than you could. Who seemed to expect you to resolve things on a timeline that had nothing to do with the actual depth of what you were carrying. Release them. Not because they were right. Not because their misunderstanding did not cost you something real. But because carrying the weight of their incomprehension, on top of everything else you have been carrying, is a weight that does not belong to you anymore. It served a purpose. It taught you something about who can hold your depth and who cannot, about where you can be fully honest and where you need to be more careful, about the difference between people who are in your life for the long journey and people who are in your life for a shorter portion of the road. That discernment is valuable. Keep it. But the weight of the incomprehension itself, the residue of feeling unseen by the people who were supposed to see you, let that go. Not all at once, not by force, not by pretending it did not hurt. But gradually, intentionally, by choosing one small decision at a time to stop giving it the space inside you that it has been occupying, to reclaim that space for something else, for the openness that what is coming requires, for the presence that receiving it well will demand. You were seen by the one who matters most. In every moment they missed you, he saw you. In every room where you felt invisible, He knew exactly where you were. In every prayer that felt like it stopped at the ceiling. He heard it before it left your lips. In every night that felt like the silence meant absence. He was closer than the silence. In every season of invisible work, he was the one doing the work. In you, through you, underneath you, holding the thread of you intact through everything that tried to unravel it. That did not stop. Has not stopped. And it will not stop. What God begins in a life, He finishes. Not always on our timeline. Not always in the form we originally imagined. Not always through the doors we were watching. But He finishes. He is not a God of abandoned projects or forgotten people or half-completed work. He finishes what He starts, with a thoroughness and a care and a specificity that will, eventually, become visible to you in ways that make the waiting make sense. That day is coming. For you. Specifically. Renim. Hold on just a little longer. Not with clenched hands and gritted teeth. That is not what I mean. With open hands. With a quiet, steady, deeply rooted kind of holding on that has already gotten you this far. That has already proven itself capable of carrying you through more than you thought you could carry. You already know how to do this. You have been doing it all along. And when the morning comes, the real one, the one that carries not just the subtle loosening but the unmistakable arrival of what you have been waiting for, you will know it. Not because it announces itself with fanfare, but because something in you, something deep and patient and faithful, will recognize it. The way you recognize something that has always belonged to you, even before you held it. The way the answer feels familiar the moment it arrives. As if some part of you always knew this was how it was going to go. That morning is yours. It is already on its way. And you, exactly as you are, exactly where you are, with everything you have been through and everything you are still carrying, you are exactly who is always going to be standing here to receive it. Do not forget that. Do not let the weight of another difficult day make you forget that. You were found today for a reason. And the reason is not finished yet. If this message reached something real in you, if these words found the place they were looking for, I want to ask you to do something. Subscribe to this channel so that we can keep finding each other in these quiet moments. Share this message with 5 people who are in their own waiting seasons, who are carrying things in silence, who need to hear that they have not been forgotten. Leave a comment below. Not a performance, not something you think sounds right, but something true. Something that reflects where you actually are. Because those honest words become a kind of offering, both for you and for the people who will read them and feel less alone. And if you have a message you would like us to explore next, a question you carry, a theme that lives in the unresolved places of your life, tell me. Leave it in the comments. Because this is not a one-way conversation. This is a space where we find each other. Where the right words find the right people at the right time. You came here today because something sent you. Come back tomorrow for the same reason. We will be here.